A woman, her face covered in blood, is surrounded and brutally beaten by a group of other women in prison. Powerless to fight back, she collapses on the ground. Looking at a flower, its intent to survive mirroring her own desire for revenge, she watches it stubbornly bloom through blurred vision. Like the flower, she refuses to give up, refuses to accept defeat. She will survive, and she will have her revenge. Her name is Yon Hwa. Finally, the beating leaves her critically injured. The prison hastily arranges transport to a hospital. As her handcuffs are removed, Yon Hwa, ignoring her wounds, seizes the opportunity and escapes. She's found by a friend, who is heartbroken by the sight of Yon Hwa's injuries. Are those women in prison completely insane? How could they beat someone so badly? Together, they hatch an escape plan and begin to disguise themselves. But the prison authorities act swiftly, coordinating with local police, setting up roadblocks, and even deploying K-9 units. A half-eaten pastry left in the backseat of their getaway car becomes their unlikely saving grace, allowing them to narrowly evade capture. Back in Yon Hwa's prison cell, a wedding invitation is discovered. Yon Hwa successfully makes it to the wedding and angrily rips up a wedding photo at the entrance. She then seeks out the woman who framed her, the woman whose actions landed her in prison. "Why are you here? Didn't you send me the invitation?" she asks. "If I'm invited, I should come." "Your release date is a long way off," Yon Hwa retorts. "What are you afraid of, you Ra? You framed me, sent me to prison for a crime I didn't commit, and now you're stealing my boyfriend. Are you afraid the truth will come out?" Yon Hwa wants her revenge on Yu Ra. Yu Ra taunts her, "Go ahead, push me. Then you'll be a real murderer." Yon Hwa, regaining her composure, pulls Rose up and handcuffs them together. "What are you doing?" Rose asks. Just then, the groom, Yun-Yi, appears and tells Yon Hwa to stop. "Do you really want to make things worse? Instead of living like this, half dead inside, why not ask for forgiveness and let it go?" Yon Hwa is devastated that the man she loves so deeply doesn't believe her. She insists she didn't kill anyone. She struggles with another woman, presumably named Jia, begging her to tell the truth. But standing precariously close to an edge, Yon Hwa and Jia fall. Yon Hwa is not willing to die like this. What will happen to her mother and her intellectually disabled sister? Can she go back? 3 months earlier, Yon Hwa was full of hope and faith in life, living in a small apartment with her sister. Her father passed away 20 years ago, and her mother left them 6 months ago to marry a judge. 20 years prior, Judge Choi's wife died suddenly, leaving him to raise their daughter, Yu Ra, alone until he met Kyung-suk. They remarried after years of solitude, forming a new family. Kyung-suk has been in their home for 6 months, treated more like a housekeeper than a respected member of the family. The cruel mother-in-law constantly torments her new daughter-in-law, even tricking her into visiting a shaman. The shaman, possessed by the spirit of Yu Ra's deceased mother, attacks and berates Kyung-suk for taking her place, vowing to make her life a living hell. Meanwhile, J Cosmetics is welcoming its new president. All the employees gather at the entrance to greet him. Yun-Yi tells the manager that this isn't necessary, but the manager explains that it was the chairman's arrangement. Yun-Yi, wanting to prove his own competence and resenting his father's constant interference, goes to the hospital to discuss the matter. He wants to manage the company on his own merits and asks his father not to intervene so much. His father then shows him a picture of a woman and orders him to propose. Yun-Yi tells his father that he already has the woman he loves and will find an opportunity to introduce her. The woman he speaks of currently works as a temporary employee at J Cosmetics. Unexpectedly, Yon Hwa encounters her stepsister backstage, but Yu Ra pretends not to know her and walks away. At that moment, Yon Hwa receives a phone call. Her intellectually disabled sister is missing. She immediately abandons her work and rushes off. Yu Ra follows her, warning Yon Hwa never to appear before her again. Yon Hwa pleaded, "Please, can you let her go? My sister is missing. Answer me, or you won't be going anywhere." The two sisters, residents of a poor neighborhood, had come to a luxurious restaurant to attend their step-grandmother's birthday party. Yu Ra threw a wad of cash at them, ordering, "Take the money and get out. My grandmother's 70th birthday party isn't a place for your kind, Yon Hwa." Yon Hwa responded, "Aren't we family? I just came to celebrate her birthday. I also wanted to see my mother. It's been 6 months." Yu Ra sneered, "Your mother isn't even officially married to my father. She didn't even have a wedding. How laughable. Just sharing a meal doesn't make us family. Are you trying to scheme your way into high society? Yoon Hwa, suppressing her anger, threw the money back at Yu-ra. She wouldn't act rashly and embarrass her mother in her new home. Yu-ra still wanted to cause trouble. Just then, another woman called her over, and Yu-ra immediately put on a fawning expression. Meanwhile, Yoon Hwa's mother had been lured away by her mother-in-law, precisely to prevent her from seeing her daughters. Yoon Hwa tried calling her mother repeatedly, but couldn't reach her. Yu-ra deliberately knocked Soo-ee's gift to the ground. As Soo-ee bent to pick it up, she bumped into the cake cart, ruining the birthday cake. Furious, the grandmother yelled, "Get out of here, both of you. I don't want to see your faces." Yoon Hwa apologized profusely to her step-grandmother. Before leaving, she apologized to Yu-ra again and quickly ushered Soo-ee out of the banquet hall. Their mother returned to find the hall in chaos. Just then, Chairman Ha's family arrived. It turned out the party was actually a matchmaking event the grandmother had arranged for Yu-ra, which Yu-ra herself had now ruined. Kyung-suk called, asking where her daughters were. Soo-ee grabbed the phone to apologize to her mother, hitting herself and crying, "It's all my fault, I messed up. When will I see you again, Mom?" Not wanting to worry her mother, Yoon Hwa told her, "Everything's fine." Their mother cried. It was Yoon Hwa's birthday, and she couldn't be there. She had hoped to share a meal with her daughter, but even that small wish was now impossible. The sisters had nothing, their lives seemingly devoid of hope. Fortunately, Yoon Hwa's boyfriend was there. He took them to an amusement park, wanting to give Yoon Hwa a special birthday. He gathered everyone there to sing "Happy Birthday" to her. "Happy birthday, my beloved Yoon Hwa," Yoon-yi sang, his voice filled with affection. Yoon Hwa was embarrassed but deeply touched. She felt grateful for having such a wonderful man in her life. Soo-ee cheered him on enthusiastically, "Because you're the best man in the world." Though there were tears, there was even more laughter on this birthday. Yoon-yi didn't want to part with Yoon Hwa and was worried about her and Soo-ee living in their current situation. He told Yoon Hwa, "Come meet my parents, let's get married." Thinking of her father's debts, Yoon Hwa didn't want her current financial struggles to burden Yoon-yi. She told him she wanted to find a job first and then think about the future. Yoon-yi wanted to tell her that he wasn't poor, that he was the president of J Cosmetics, but he couldn't bring himself to say it. Kyung-suk, having completed her mother-in-law's errand, returned home to report. The older woman, remembering the ruined birthday party, taunted, "Are you happy now? Your daughters caused trouble, just like you." Judge Choi entered, and Kyung-suk immediately transformed into the image of a dutiful wife. Her son asked for permission to take his wife out for a while. Meanwhile, Yoon Hwa was heading out to look for a job, telling Soo-ee to stay home and be good. As soon as she left, a creepy man appeared at the door. He had been watching the tenants for a while and, seizing the opportunity of Yoon Hwa's absence, planned to assault Soo-ee. Hearing her sister's screams from inside, Yoon Hwa rushed back in, grabbing an umbrella and hitting the attacker. With all her strength, she wrestled with the man, yelling at her sister, "Run!" But Soo-ee was frozen in terror, screaming for help, hoping someone would come and save them. The man, fearing exposure, knocked Yoon Hwa unconscious. As he fled, he ran into Kyung-suk arriving to visit her daughters. He panicked and bolted. Kyung-suk, seeing the blood on the floor, rushed inside. She confronted the landlord. "How dare your son do such a thing? You failed to teach him any manners." The landlord retorted, "What's with you? Now that you're married to money, you think you can talk down to me? Didn't you abandon your own daughters for a better life? You're a hypocrite, pretending to be a caring mother." "How laughable." Kyung-suk returned to her daughters, apologizing. "I thought marrying him would give you a better life, a father figure. But..." She berated herself for her uselessness. Judge Choi, unable to catch the fleeing man, returned and scolded his wife. "Why are you letting them live in a place like this? What happened to your old house?" Not wanting to burden her mother further, Yoon Hwa told her stepfather, "We sold the house to pay off debts. Soo-ee and I chose to live here." This time, however, her mother refused to endure any more. She couldn't bear to see her daughters living like this. Judge Choi told them, "Pack your things and move in with me. We'll live together." Yoon Hwa was overjoyed. The attacker returned home and argued with his mother and Yu-ra. He accused her father of being cruel. "Why are you protecting someone else's daughter?" "Who's protecting me? I absolutely won't allow it." "Then I'll move out. I won't live here anymore." His mother also scolded him, telling him he couldn't do such things. Can't you see how heartbroken your own daughter is? Do you want to give them a chance to fight over our family's wealth? Worried about Ra, Kyung-suk left Yeon Hwa and Soo-ae to comfort her stepdaughter. Yeon Hwa apologized to her stepfather, blaming herself for the unhappiness, and asked him to take care of Soo-ae. She said she could stay with a friend. The poor girl had nowhere to go, afraid to return to her rented room. She ended up spending the night in a public bathhouse. Fortunately, her boyfriend found her. She told Yoon-yi there was an intruder in the house. Yoon-yi, heartbroken by her injuries, was determined to bring her happiness and protect her. He prepared a lavish breakfast and played a soothing melody for her. The warmth and kindness of her boyfriend finally brought a smile to her face. Soo-ae, now staying with her mother, clung to her like a shadow. She hid behind her mother's skirt when she saw her grandmother. Wanting to be a good father, Judge Choi took his wife and stepdaughters out to dinner. However, his mother saw them and thought, Kyung-suk is truly a fox. Judge Choi apologized to Yeon Hwa that they could only take care of Soo-ae, not her. He offered her money to find a better place to live. But Yeon Hwa, thinking of Ra, refused the money. Her only wish was that when she got married, her stepfather would walk her down the aisle. Yeon Hwa went to apply for a job at a major cosmetics company and saw a familiar figure sitting before her, her longtime boyfriend. Feeling betrayed, a mix of complex emotions surged through her. Shocked by the revelation, she nearly lost her composure. "Do you need a break?" he asked. "I'm fine. Let's start the interview." Ra, watching from outside, saw everything. She had warned Yeon Hwa not to appear before her again. Yoon-yi chased after Yeon Hwa, but she no longer trusted him. She demanded, "Why did you do this? Did you not trust me? Were you afraid I'd use you for your money?" Yoon-yi pleaded with her not to think that way. He knew she was a good person. But Yeon Hwa's pride was wounded. She couldn't accept this reality. In college, she had opened her heart to him because she believed they shared similar humble backgrounds. Now, all Yeon Hwa could think about was breaking up. At Judge Choi's house, ever since Kyung-suk's intellectually disabled daughter moved in, her mother-in-law and Do-hee refused to eat at the same table with them. Ra excitedly told her grandmother. Chairman Ha asked if I would be his daughter-in-law. Her grandmother beamed with delight. Ra and Yoon-yi were childhood friends, and Ra was also Yoon-yi's secretary. A marriage between them would be welcomed by both families. Ra spent the night decorating the new apartment, meticulously choosing every item. She then received a call from the chairman's wife, asking her to prepare all of Yeon Hwa's files. The chairman, not just a shrewd businessman but also a caring father, had been puzzled by his son's recent transformation. He finally realized it was the power of love. He called Yeon Hwa in to ask about her decision regarding marriage. As Yeon Hwa left, she ran into Ra entering. Do-hee, wanting to gather more information, had walked with the chairman's wife back to their home. The wife curiously asked her husband, "Why did you call Yoon-yi's fiancé in?" Overhearing that the new apartment wasn't for her, Ra collapsed. Was the chairman's wife asking about Yeon Hwa? Absolutely not. She wouldn't accept Yeon Hwa. Determined to uncover the truth, Ra secretly went to the apartment she had decorated. She even knew the door code. The space was transformed. Yoon-yi had prepared a romantic proposal setting. He then brought Yeon Hwa there. "Yeon Hwa, will you marry me?" Ra, watching from outside, was consumed with jealousy. "Who do you think you are, Yeon Hwa? Who do you think you are to steal everything from me?" Spotting a luxury car across the street, she grabbed a fire extinguisher and smashed it in a frenzy, venting her rage. The car belonged to her boss, the man she had secretly loved for 20 years, and he was now proposing to her stepsister. She finally understood why Yeon Hwa insisted on joining the company. She wanted a rich husband to change her fate. Ra cursed her, calling her and her mother gold diggers. "Just you wait, I won't let you two get married." Yeon Hwa, who had been about to accept Yoon-yi's proposal, now wavered. Ra's actions were momentarily hidden, as the security camera in that corner was broken. Meanwhile, Soo-ae was in trouble. Ra confronted her. "Why did you touch my things?" Soo-ae innocently replied. "I put your sister's picture up." Ra slapped her and warned, "If you dare enter my room again, I'll rip all your hair out." The terrified girl begged for forgiveness. At the dinner table, Ra suggested, "I think my stepmother's older daughter should move in with us. It's cruel to separate them." Her father and stepmother seemed pleased. Her grandmother praised her. "My dear granddaughter is so kind. You're too good. and scolded her son. Yu-ra is only making this concession for your happiness. This young man returned to his hometown after 22 years away. In Korea, his sole dream was to become the president of J Cosmetic. He'd planned to celebrate his first day of work with the chairman's wife. But when she heard the chairman was having a meeting at home, she abandoned Changdu and rushed back. Yoon Hwa's dream was to become a cosmetics designer. Through her hard work, she successfully joined the development team. Yu-ra, wanting to sabotage her, snuck into Yoon Hwa's office and discovered confidential documents on her desk. She found the business card of Changdu, a development team manager at a rival company, and leaked the confidential information to him, using Yoon Hwa's name. Yoon Hwa was completely oblivious. When she returned to her office, Yu-ra was gone. Just then, Yoon Hwa received a call from her stepfather, urging her to come home immediately. Upon arriving, Yu-ra offered Yoon Hwa clothes. Confused by Yu-ra's sudden change of heart, Yoon Hwa thanked her, thinking, maybe she's finally accepted me. Perhaps we can live together peacefully now? She had no idea her nightmare was about to begin. This woman hadn't been this happy since her remarriage. She had a husband to rely on, her children were now by her side, everything seemed perfect. At the dinner table, Yoon Hwa chatted happily with her mother. Yu-ra, seething with anger, excused herself to use the restroom, but instead went to Yoon Hwa's room. Using Yoon Hwa's phone, she texted manager Chang-do at the rival company. I sent the confidential documents last night. Transfer the money to this account number. Do-hee then offered to drive Yoon Hwa to work. Unsuspecting, Yoon Hwa happily said goodbye and left with Do-hee. At that moment, she received a strange call. The caller identified themselves as being from the development department of Cha My Cosmetics and requested a meeting. Suspicious, Yoon Hwa went to the meeting, unsure of their intentions. As she inquired further, the man spotted J Cosmetics manager, Ha Yoon-hee, and quickly left. Who was that? Yoon Hwa asked. I don't know, came the reply. On her first day at the prestigious cosmetics company, Yoon Hwa was suspected of being a corporate spy, leveraging the company's newly developed product for personal gain. She was immediately fired. Wrongfully accused and humiliated, Yoon Hwa quietly left. Yu-ra, the mastermind behind the scheme, brushed past her, asking, "Why were you fired?" "Dad, Mom, I've been wrongly accused," Yoon Hwa cried. The woman, who had waited 20 years in this wealthy household, finally saw her opportunity. He was about to fire the housekeeper because his daughter was about to give birth, so he took a leave of absence. His son and daughter were preoccupied with their love lives, leaving him alone. The chairman, alone in his room, suddenly struggled to breathe. His oxygen tank, which was supposed to be by his bed, was nowhere to be found. His life hung in the balance. Meanwhile, his wife was leisurely enjoying her life. Yoon-hee returned home to find his father vomiting blood and unconscious. Panicked, he searched for the oxygen tank. It was usually kept ready for him, but now it seemed to have vanished into thin air. Yoon-hee forcefully opened the bathroom door, yelling, "Do-hee, ask stepmother where she hid the oxygen tank." Yoon-hee, fearing her father's imminent death, brought her long-term boyfriend home to meet him. Yoon-hee confronted his sister. "Why did you bring him here? He's not an ordinary person, he's a gangster." Though a thug, he loved Yoon-hee deeply. Their father, overjoyed to meet his daughter's beloved before his time was up, urged Tae-soo to protect Yoon-hee always. Yoon-hee called Yoon Hwa, asking her to come to the hospital as his father had something to tell her. When Yoon-hee brought Yoon Hwa to the hospital room, Yoon-hee reacted vehemently. "Is this the woman you want to marry? Do you even know what kind of person she is? She's a spy for a rival company." "What's this about? Who's a spy?" The chairman, whose condition had just stabilized, took a turn for the worse due to this outburst and had to be rushed back into surgery. Yoon-hee refused to listen to Yoon Hwa's pleas of innocence, demanding she leave her brother alone. But Yoon-hee remained steadfast in his belief in the woman he loved. She would never do such a thing. He enlisted the company's best lawyer to find evidence to clear Yoon Hwa's name. At that crucial moment, the lawyer received a call from the chairman, forcing him to put the matter aside. Had he waited just one more minute, the whole truth would have been revealed. Yu-ra, also positioned outside the camera room, stopped Yoon-hee from checking the security footage. Instead, she presented Yoon-hee with a fabricated video clip, claiming, "That night, besides Yoon Hwa, no one else passed through the development department." Knowing his time was limited, the chairman instructed his lawyer to adjust his will. His wife, finally seeing her opportunity, called Chengdu. Chengdu immediately submitted his resignation. Before leaving, his curiosity about the wrongly accused woman piqued. He decided to take a look at the footage himself. Seeing Yu-Ra in the video, he realized she was the culprit. Yon Hwa, having been kicked out of the company and forbidden from returning, encountered Chengdu leaving and pleaded with him. "Can you help me, Chengdu?" Recalling the chairman's wife mentioning that someone in the development department was Yun Yi's girlfriend, immediately guessed it was Yon Hwa. Yun Yi's girlfriend was his enemy, and he wanted no part in it. Back with the chairman, as soon as the will adjustments were finalized, his wife turned on him, revealing a shocking truth. 20 years ago, your ex-wife abandoned your 2 young children to run off with another man. The chairman had never told her this. How did she know? It turned out she was behind it all. "You foolish man. You were the one who insisted on marrying me. I merely fulfilled your wish. Now you can go to hell and reunite with your ex-wife." Her venomous words sent the chairman into shock. When the doctor arrived, she feigned concern. Ultimately, the chairman passed away. Distracted by her phone while driving, this woman, not paying attention to her speed, struck someone. Even a woman with a heart as cold as hers was frightened to the point her legs went weak. Yu-Ra got out of the car to check and saw a woman lying in a pool of blood. The woman used her last bit of strength to plead with her. Yu-Ra heartlessly brushed her hand aside and fled, speeding away from the scene. Yon Hwa, driving behind, almost hit the woman in the road herself, but managed to brake just in time. "Help me, save my child," the woman cried. Just then, Yu-Ra, having fled, returned. Purposely approaching from a different direction, she feigned ignorance and rushed over to Yon Hwa, asking, "What happened?" Yon Hwa replied, "You just arrived. There was an accident." The perpetrator fled the scene. Yon Hwa frantically yelled, "Call an ambulance, wake up." Yu-Ra then realized the person she hit was Yun Hee. Yon Hwa cried out, "Get some towels." Yu-Ra, spotting the original security footage in her car, quickly hid it. She had hit someone because of that tape. The ambulance Yon Hwa called arrived. She told Yu-Ra, "Please call the police and go to the hospital with Yun Hee." After the ambulance left, Yu-Ra hastily cleaned up the scene. She was certain Yun Hee hadn't seen her, and Yon Hwa's accidental appearance was just bad luck. She would have to bear the consequences. She called the police, posing as a witness, and claimed Yon Hwa was the perpetrator. She then took her car to a repair shop, lying to the mechanic that she had hit a tree. "Please fix it quickly. I'll pay you double." After everything was taken care of, she called Yun Yi and informed him, Yun Hee was in a car accident and has been taken to the hospital. This wicked woman shifted all the blame onto her stepmother's daughter. The kind and naive Yon Hwa never suspected Yu-Ra. She believed everything Yu-Ra said. A nurse informed them, "The patient's condition is critical. She urgently needs a blood transfusion." Without hesitation, Yon Hwa offered her own blood. Yu-Ra remained indifferent, silently praying Yun Hee would never wake up. When Yun Hee arrived, she put on an act, frantically begging the nurses to take her blood and save Yun Hee. Feigning distress, she collapsed into Yun Yee's arms, telling him, "Yon Hwa did this." Yun Yee wanted to hear it from Yon Hwa herself. "Where is she now?" Yu-Ra, lying without flinching, replied, "I don't know." Meanwhile, Yon Hwa asked the nurse to take more blood, insisting she could handle it. Her boyfriend arrived, questioning her. "Did you really hit Yun Hee?" Yon Hwa was bewildered. She turned to Yu-Ra, asking, "What's going on? Didn't you say the driver fled?" Yu-Ra claimed she was panicked and spoke carelessly. Now calmer, she recounted her fabricated version of events to Yun Yi. Yon Hwa tried to explain the situation as she saw it. At that moment, the police arrived at the hospital, stating they received a report. Yun Yi angrily questioned them. "What is the meaning of this?" She recklessly accused Yon Hwa without knowing the full story, he demanded. "Did you see Yon Hwa hit her with your own eyes?" he urged caution, pointing out Yun Hee was clearly hit by another car, and insisted to the police that Yon Hwa was not responsible, urging them to find the real culprit. Yu-Ra doubled down, claiming she made the report and was certain Yon Hwa was to blame. "Didn't you say Yon Hwa was responsible when you called the police? I witnessed firsthand how cruel this woman was." Yu-Ra, having critically injured a pedestrian with her car, shifted the blame onto Yon Hwa. The victim was her own stepsister, with whom she'd grown up. Just last night, Yun Hee had been blissfully happy, newly engaged and expecting a child. Now she lay critically injured. Taking advantage of the empty hospital room, Yu-ra pleaded with Yoon-hee to save her. To her horror, Yoon-hee weakly responded, "Why should I wake up?" The fear of being exposed consumed Yu-ra, causing her to stumble and accidentally disconnect Yoon-hee's oxygen tube. Yu-ra made no attempt to help. Spotting Yeon-hwa outside the room, she quickly hid. Yeon-hwa, finding Yoon-hee on the floor, inadvertently left her fingerprints on the disconnected oxygen tube. Panicked, she rushed to get a doctor, giving Yu-ra the chance to escape. Tragically, despite the doctor's best efforts, Yoon-hee didn't survive. Her boyfriend was devastated. T-il, Yoon-hee's boyfriend, furiously blamed Yeon-hwa, accusing her of murder and feigning innocence. "Today, you'll go to hell with Yoon-hee." Sue-yi, arriving to see her sister, witnessed the attack and intervened, only to be violently shoved to the ground. Their mother, hearing the commotion, rushed out. T-il warned, "This is just the beginning. Next time, it will be your family." Yu-ra, believing Yoon-hee dead and unable to testify, was confident Yeon-hwa would be convicted. But she hadn't accounted for the police investigation. Detective Chang-do noticed her bracelet. "Why is your bracelet covered in blood?" She claimed it happened while helping Yoon-hee. Chang-do revealed Yeon-hwa mentioned Yoon-hee clutching a bracelet. He had more evidence. Yoon-hee's button was found in Yu-ra's car. She was the real culprit, yet she framed Yeon-hwa. Panicked, Yu-ra asked what he wanted. He smiled, reassuring her, "They're family. As long as you can offer the right compensation, I'll help you." Yu-ra took the incriminating evidence from Chang-do and planted it in the car Yeon-hwa had borrowed. Yeon-hwa was now seriously implicated. T-il had truly intended to kill her. Sue-yi informed Yu-ra, who had just returned home, about the attack on her sister. Yu-ra felt no remorse. "Fate is on my side. Yeon-hwa is just unlucky." The next day, Detective Chang-do impounded the car, finding no external damage. As he puzzled over the case, a reporter approached, fishing for information. "I hear Yeon-hwa, wrongly accused of corporate espionage, held a grudge against manager Yoon-hee." Chang-do warned him against speculation. "We need to look at the evidence before making any conclusions." Just then, the forensic team found the planted evidence. The reporter knew he had a big story. With public opinion spiraling out of control, Yoon-hee decided to hold a press conference to clear Yeon-hwa's name, proclaiming her Yoon-hee's rescuer. Meanwhile, the police analyzed Yoon-hee's earring, finding Yeon-hwa's fingerprints and DNA. Yoon-hee stood at the podium, declaring to his girlfriend, "I will protect you." He told the reporters that Yeon-hwa had saved his sister, not harmed her, and pleaded with the media to stop speculating. At that very moment, the police arrived with an arrest warrant for Yeon-hwa on suspicion of murder. Horrified, Yeon-hwa insisted on her innocence, but they dragged her away. The kind woman who had tried to help was now wrongly accused of murder and put on trial. Everything seemed stacked against her. The defendant, Yeon-hwa, intentionally ran over Yoon-hee, causing her death. The first witness, R, testified that Yeon-hwa hadn't mentioned a fleeing driver and hadn't immediately called the police. Whether Yeon-hwa had actually tried to help the victim, she couldn't say. The judge called more witnesses. The ambulance paramedics, the hospital nurses, even Yeon-hwa's neighbors, all testified to her good character. Even her previous commendations for good citizenship seemed to offer little help. The defense attorney argued that Yeon-hwa hadn't avoided responsibility, had stopped at the accident scene, and had taken the victim to the hospital. He maintained her innocence. He reassured Yeon-hwa's family. "Although we haven't found conclusive evidence to prove Yeon-hwa's innocence, the witness testimonies will be taken into consideration. The possibility of acquittal is high." Innocent, Yeon-hwa sat in jail, clutching the token of love her boyfriend had given her. She clung to the belief that the truth would prevail. Her mother, desperate to help, pleaded with Do-hee, "Can you please speak up for Yeon-hwa? Can you say something in her favor in court?" Overhearing, their grandmother berated her daughter-in-law for suggesting Do-hee lie and disrupt the family, ordering them to leave the house. The second hearing arrived. Representative Go, Yeon-hwa's colleague and the owner of the car, appeared as a witness. She firmly believed in Yeon-hwa's kind and hard-working nature. The prosecution began questioning Representative Go. Yeon-hwa stole confidential company documents, didn't she? Despite knowing Yeon-hwa was innocent, Representative Go couldn't defend her on this point. The evidence against Yeon-hwa continued to mount. Everyone awaited the final witness, Detective Chang Du. At this point, the defense called Yoon Ye to the stand. He testified, "Yoon Hwa is incapable of lying. Even with my sister's death, I believe her. I can attest to her innocence." The hearing concluded. Chang Du pondered. Besides the previous espionage incident, could Yu Ra also be behind this accident? This is really changing my perspective on women. Since her imprisonment, Yoon Hwa had refused food and drink. Seeing her boyfriend's tears in court and his struggle to prove her innocence, she knew she couldn't give up. She had to fight this injustice. R called Chang Du, questioning his absence from court. If Yoon Hwa was acquitted, the case would be reopened. The corrupt detective recorded the conversation and sent it to Du He, promising to present this evidence at the next hearing. Feigning sympathy for Yoon Hwa, he was simply angling for more money. Judge Choi discovered 50 million won missing from his daughter's bank account, and now she was asking her grandmother for another 200 million. Yu Ra, knowing she couldn't hide it any longer, confessed to her father, begging him to save her. "If it hadn't been Yoon Hee, but someone else, I wouldn't have let Yoon Hwa take the blame." Her father, a prosecutor with 25 years of integrity, could only advise her to confess, "You must take responsibility for your actions." At that moment, Kyung-suk interrupted, "Will you choose justice or your own daughter?" The final hearing arrived. Yoon Hwa's cellmates encouraged her, "This time, you'll definitely be acquitted." Yoon Hwa was brought to court again. Her family offered words of encouragement. The judge had been replaced. It was now Yoon Hwa's stepfather, Judge Choi. Yoon Hwa and her mother were overjoyed, believing his presence would ensure a fair trial and increase her chances of acquittal. Her stepsister was guilty, she was falsely accused, and their father presided over the case. Yoon Hwa desperately hoped he would clear her name. But her stepfather had bribed the police and the lawyer, fabricating evidence. Yoon Hwa had no remaining witnesses, and her lawyer had given up. The prosecution demanded a life sentence. The judge asked the defense attorney for his final statement. Despite having abandoned his client, the lawyer argued against a murder conviction. The judge then offered Yoon Hwa a final statement. She spoke of her dreams of a happy family, shattered by someone's selfish ambition. She hadn't committed any crime, yet the police had twisted the truth. She believed the court was a place of justice and fairness, and pleaded with the judge for an impartial verdict. The final judgment would be announced in 2 days. Yoon Hwa was led away. Her distraught mother chased after her, promising everything would be all right. Yoon Ye visited Judge Choi's house seeking information, only to find Yoon Hwa's stepsister there. Yoon Hwa's mother pulled Yoon Ye aside, revealing, "My son is remarrying your sister." Yoon Ye had never heard Yoon Hwa mention this. Her mother feigned surprise, "My granddaughter just called and told me." She then proceeded to paint Yoon Hwa as manipulative and ambitious. Her mother, even older, didn't have a wedding or register the marriage, and abandoned her 2 children to live here. Furthermore, Yu Ra's father gave Yoon Hwa 150 million won. Despite taking the money, the 2 sisters shamelessly remained here. Soo Ae interrupted, announcing, "Your sister's boyfriend is here." His mother continued to fuel the fire. Yu Ra testified truthfully in court and was harassed by Yoon Hwa's mother as a result. "Poor Yu Ra can't even sleep at night. My granddaughter is truly kind." Kyung-suk confronted her mother-in-law. "When did you meet the children's father and R? Why are you so determined to paint Yoon Hwa as a criminal?" Her mother-in-law retorted, asking why her husband, with his busy schedule, should preside over her daughter's case and why she was constantly unsettling her granddaughter with nightmares. Judge Choi arrived home, urging his mother to calm down and prioritize her health. This seemingly kind man told Yoon Ye that he considered Yoon Hwa like his own daughter, but the evidence was overwhelming, and even he couldn't save her. Yoon Ye asked, "If convicted, what sentence would Yoon Hwa receive?" Judge Choi replied, "For intentional homicide, at least 10 years." Yoon Ye's resolve began to waver. His sister was dead. If Yoon Hwa was responsible, their relationship was over. Yoon Hwa was distraught. "Didn't you say you believed me? What happened? Why don't you trust me anymore?" Yoon Ye, drunk and devastated, was taken back to his apartment by a solicitous Yu Ra. She called her grandmother, announcing, "I'm staying with Yoon Ye tonight. I won't be coming home." Even though he kept calling Yoon Hwa's name, she didn't care. She was determined to become his woman. Meanwhile, Yoon Hwa was brutally beaten by her cellmates. Even the man who had loved and trusted her had abandoned her. The next morning, Yu-ra woke up beside him, gently asking, "Did you sleep well?" The day of the final verdict arrived. Yoon Hwa didn't see Yoon-yi. The judge declared her guilty. He recalled Yoon-yi's desperate plea for leniency. While the sentence could have been over 10 years, he ultimately sentenced her to 3. Yoon Hwa erupted, refusing to accept the verdict and demanding a retrial. They had imprisoned an innocent woman, while the true culprit remained free. Her mother rushed forward, demanding to know if they had witnessed her daughter commit the crime. "You will all face retribution. I will expose you. I finally understand you. Just you wait. I'll reveal your true face, you poor girl." While there was a chance for appeal, Yoon Hwa's lawyer visited her in prison, informing her, "The appeal deadline has passed. 3 years is the minimum sentence. If you're dissatisfied, the prosecution will proceed with the punishment." With no recourse, Yoon Hwa was sent to women's prison. "Get down on your knees and bow. This is the boss of this room," Yoon Hwa screamed desperately, hoping for some kind of intervention. The aggressive woman clamped a hand over Yoon Hwa's mouth, warning, "You'd better behave, or you'll regret it." J Cosmetics, after the consecutive deaths of its chairman and a department head, was in turmoil. This woman, the legal guardian who had seized 20% of the shares under the deceased Yoon-hee's name, wanted to remove Yoon-yi from his position as chairman and install her own son, Chang-do, who was living abroad. Yu-ra's grandmother, also a shareholder in the company, held 18% of the shares and, to fulfill her granddaughter's wishes, made a deal with Yoon-yi. She would transfer the shares to him, but he had to marry Yu-ra. After all, he had already spent the night with her granddaughter. In the end, Yoon-yi retained his position as chairman. However, with a precarious hold on power, he promised the board that he would increase sales by 10% within 3 months. Kyung-suk brought Soo-ae to visit Yoon Hwa. This reunion was all they could manage. Though heartbroken, Yoon Hwa didn't have time for sorrow. She told her mother, "Yu-ra is the one who framed me, though I don't know the exact reason. Right now, I need your help and Soo-ee's." Kyung-suk returned to the loveless house she lived in. She had to endure. She hoped the man of the house would protect her and Soo-ae. This man was her first love, the father of her first child. His mother, disapproving of Kyung-suk's poor background, had forced her to have an abortion and separated them. To help Yoon-yi overcome the difficulties at the company, Yu-ra snuck into Soo-ee's room and stole Yoon Hwa's cosmetics development notebook from her college days. She stole some ideas from it and gave them to Yoon-yi, hoping to help him. Colleagues in the development department praised the ideas. "Brilliant, even more professional than our own team." Yoon Hwa, while participating in a work detail in prison, happened to see a news headline, "J Cosmetics faces difficulties." She was determined to help Yoon-yi. She wrote a letter to her mother and Yoon-yi, asking her mother to give her notebook to him. But her mother searched the entire room and couldn't find it. The letter to Yoon-yi had been thrown in the trash by Yu-ra, only to be found by Kyung-suk. Disgusted by Yu-ra's actions, Kyung-suk personally delivered the letter to Yoon-yi. He didn't have the courage to open it. He couldn't protect her anymore. They couldn't go back. At dinner, Kyung-suk excused herself to use the restroom and quietly went to Yu-ra's room. As she suspected, she found Yoon Hwa's notebook in Yu-ra's bag. At that moment, Yu-ra walked in. "Were you going through my bag? Why is this in my bag? How dare you touch my things?" Her mother-in-law berated Kyung-suk. Was a tattered notebook worth such anger? Kyung-suk asked her, "Why did you take someone else's belongings without permission?" This notebook contains years of Yoon Hwa's hard work and ideas. Meanwhile, Soo-ae, also wanting to help her sister, secretly copied Yu-ra's phone call log. Fed up with Kyung-suk and her retarded daughter, the mother-in-law said, "If you have any conscience, leave this house, take your debts with you, and live in repentance." "What would you do if Yu-ra had done this?" Kyung-suk retorted. "What? I will always believe Yu-ra, my daughter." "They're both your daughters. What if you believed Yoon Hwa just once? Just listen to yourself. What are you expecting from me? Take this money and get some psychiatric help. I will find out who did this to Yoon Hwa and bring them to you. I'll see you then." The scheming woman who had put her sister in jail now bragged about her upcoming marriage to Yoon Hwa's boyfriend. She claimed Yoon-yi had proposed to her and told Yoon Hwa to stop dreaming. She also told Yoon Hwa to tell her mother and retarded sister to leave her house. If her in-laws found out about their connection, she wouldn't be able to show her face at their home. Moreover, her father and Yeon Hwa's mother never officially registered their marriage, so they weren't legally husband and wife. Her grandmother had also given Yeon Hwa's mother some money, which she considered more than generous. "I can't fix you anymore. You've been like this since birth. What happened to make you this way? You're so pathetic. Just enjoy this life. Be happy." Yoo-ra sneered at Yeon Hwa. Yeon Hwa asked Don Zung to visit her mother and sister after her release and to follow Officer Chang Do to find evidence of his meetings with Yoo-ra. Meanwhile, Yoo-ra, while on the phone with her father, accidentally let slip that she had stabbed someone. Yeon Hwa's mother overheard everything and decided to tell Yoon-yi the truth. She demanded that Yoo-ra accompany her to see him. Yoo-ra, determined to protect her happiness, pushed her sickly stepmother down the stairs. People nearby looked at the photo in hand. "Isn't that Yeon Hwa's sister? The person on the stretcher must be her mother," Soo-ae screamed. "Yoo-ra pushed my mother." Yoo-ra quickly covered her mouth. The onlookers chased them to the hospital, but were told the patients had been transferred. Soo-ae immediately informed Yeon Hwa, whose heart shattered. Yoo-ra hadn't even spared her mother. Don Zung urged her to stay calm and not break down. "What will you do if they actually get married? I can't take it anymore. I can't accept this. I want to get out." Yeon Hwa could endure anything, but the news of her mother's uncertain fate and her sister's disappearance broke her. She couldn't and wouldn't endure any longer. Judge Choi, plagued by guilt and contemplating abandoning his prestigious career, was given another chance by fate. He was appointed to the Supreme Court. Exhilarated, he discarded the letter he had been holding. Outside the prison, Don Zung was ready. She was seeking justice, wanting to help Yeon Hwa deliver a special wedding gift to Yoo-ra. "You pig!" Yeon Hwa deliberately provoked the prison boss, wanting to be beaten. She needed this opportunity to get out, sacrificing herself without hesitation. Taken to the hospital with severe injuries, Yeon Hwa seized her chance and escaped, meeting up with Don Zung. Bride-to-be Yoo-ra received a text from Chang Do. "Before he reveals the truth, come upstairs to see him." It was all part of Yeon Hwa's plan. She had finally caught the cunning woman who had ruined her life and harmed her family. Today, Yeon Hwa would expose everything. Yoon-yi arrived, telling Yeon Hwa to stop. He asked, "Why do you want to make another mistake?" To prove her innocence, she yelled at Yoon-yi to tell the truth. During the struggle, they lost their balance and fell. Fortunately, the police had placed safety mats below, and they escaped with minor injuries. Yeon Hwa pleaded with the warden for help, desperate not to return to prison. This could be her only chance. She wanted to meet with reporters to expose Yoo-ra's crimes. The warden reminded her that she was an escaped convict and couldn't meet with the press. "And what happened to the loved ones you worried about most? Your sister was sent to a mental hospital, and your mother is paralyzed and can't even speak. Call a reporter. Let me speak. Just a little. Can't you listen to me just once? Doesn't anyone believe me? I said I would expose the real culprit." Yeon Hwa desperately wanted to speak to the media, to tell the world she was innocent. But as an escaped prisoner, she had no such right. She claimed the judge, the police, the lawyer, and the witness were all in collusion, confessing this to the warden, who had seen countless cases. They bound her hands and feet, leaving her no chance to resist. All she could do was beg the warden to help her tell the truth. After hearing her story, the warden seemed shocked. He promised Yeon Hwa that he would look into the matter. "Thank you, sir." Fearing an increased sentence for Yeon Hwa, Yoon-yi chased after the warden, explaining that Yeon Hwa had only taken Yoo-ra hostage to reveal the truth and that the fall from the building was unintentional. He insisted Yeon Hwa wasn't that kind of person. The warden told Yoon-yi to leave. The fact remained that Yeon Hwa had escaped, and he had no authority to intervene. Judge Choi humbled himself and visited the warden, inquiring about the escaped prisoner and stating that he was the chief inspector for the case. There had been a series of attacks on judges recently, and he demanded the prison handle the matter thoroughly. Kyung-suk, confined to a nursing home, wept in despair. Was there truly any justice in the world? Her daughter was so pitiful. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of Yoo-ra's life, but Yeon Hwa's appearance had turned her wedding into a farce. Despite this, Yoon-yi insisted on leaving the hospital to go on his honeymoon with Yoo-ra. Yeon Hwa was returned to prison. The prison boss mocked her blindness to love and hatred, asking if she hadn't considered the increased sentence she would receive for escaping. Tired of being bullied, Yeon Hwa warned her not to underestimate her. Provoked, the boss flew into a rage, pinning Yon Hwa down and brutally beating her until blood flowed, finally relenting. Chang-du, an outsider, had witnessed the lingering affection between Yon Hwa and Yoon Yi, envious of their love. Reading Yon Hwa's letter to Yoon Yi, he recalled her pleas for help, which he had dismissed as unimportant, choosing to ignore her in court. Yon Hwa couldn't provide any evidence. Had he been too heartless? Now, Chang-du picked up a pen and wrote words of encouragement, hoping to offer Yon Hwa a glimmer of hope. Back in prison, the warden informed Yon Hwa that she was pregnant, news she had been too distraught to notice. He asked if the baby was Yoon Yi's. The fact that the fetus had survived the fall from the building was a gift from God. He encouraged her to live well and prove herself. However, her sentence had been increased due to the escape, and the only way to reduce it was through good behavior. The prison boss's attitude shifted dramatically, and she suddenly became attentive to Yon Hwa. It turned out she was thinking of her own daughter, whom her ex-husband had taken after having an affair. She had killed her husband's mistress. She told Yon Hwa not to be sad and to take good care of her baby. Then, a letter from Don Zung arrived. "I just want to tell you, I believe what you said is true, and I completely trust you." A while later, Yu-ra visited. She asked Yon Hwa if she was happy about ruining her wedding. Should her sentence be increased by 5 years or 10? She added that Yoon Yi had taken her to register their marriage the next day, and they were now legally husband and wife. She demanded that Yon Hwa remember her family, behave well in prison, and take care of her mother and sister. She should never interfere with her life again. "Yu-ra, I want to become your lifelong nightmare. Then stay a criminal in prison forever." "You think I'll be here forever? What can you possibly do?" "What can I do? I will start my revenge." Yon Hwa went into labor in her cell. The baby was premature. Yon Hwa struggled to give birth, supported by her fellow inmates. The prison boss urged her to be strong, imagining them as her mother, sister, and lover. She pushed through the pain, repeatedly fainting, but dreaming of her lover, mother, and sister encouraging her. She dreamed of her family. With unwavering determination, she gave birth to her son, Tijang. Her mother, determined to see her daughters, diligently practiced rehabilitation exercises. Meanwhile, Yoon Yi, feeling a sense of unease, rushed to the prison to visit Yon Hwa. The warden informed Yoon Yi that Yon Hwa couldn't see him. Meanwhile, Kyung-suk, in the nursing home, wrote a message on a piece of paper and turned to give it to her husband, Judge Choi. The note revealed Yu-ra as the true culprit. Fear flashed across Judge Choi's face. Kyung-suk knew too much. She was a liability. He arranged for her discharge, bringing her home under the pretense of care. He then showed her note to Yu-ra. They'd made a mistake, a point of no return. Now, they had to control Kyung-suk for life. Soo-ae, having escaped the mental hospital, was brought to Judge Choi's home by the police. For the sake of appearances, he had to take her in as well. Mother and daughter reunited after a year, embracing and sobbing. Judge Choi urged Kyung-suk to calm down, promising to find them a new home. Soo-ae whispered to her mother about a CD in her grandmother's room that Yon Hwa was looking for. Soo-ae, having diligently practiced writing, wanted to send her sister a letter. The CD contained evidence of corporate espionage copied by Chang-du. His mother, mistaking it for leverage, tried to use it against Yu-ra's grandmother, intending to hand it over to the prosecutor's office, unaware that his mother had already acted. Taking advantage of their mother-in-law's absence, Kyung-suk and Soo-ae searched her room for the CD. Learning the truth about that day, Kyung-suk could never forgive them. They fled. Returning home, Kyung-suk found her room ransacked. Her money was untouched, but the CD was gone. She frantically called her niece, who was live streaming. Soo-ae tried to give the CD information to Yoon Yi, but he hung up on the unknown number. Yu-ra quickly located Kyung-suk, forcing her into a car. "Mom, where are you?" Yu-ra drove Kyung-suk up a mountain, violently trying to seize her bag. But Kyung-suk wouldn't give the vicious woman the satisfaction. She had to protect her daughters. Yon Hwa, in prison, received a letter from Soo-ae. She would finally see her mother and sister. Her son hadn't even met his grandmother and aunt. During the struggle, Kyung-suk slipped and fell, grabbing Yu-ra's arm. She pleaded for her bag, but Yu-ra refused. Desperate for the evidence, Yu-ra let go. Terror filled her eyes. "What have I done? Mom?" The ruthless woman, trapped in a cycle of mistakes, had no way back, only forward. Yu-ra rushed home, forging a suicide note in Kyung-suk's name, claiming she couldn't bear being a burden due to her disability. Judge Choi, finding the note, called the police. They soon found Kyung-suk, bloodied. Yeon Hwa, anticipating her family visit, received devastating news. Her mother was in a vegetative state after an accident. As her next of kin, the hospital needed her consent for organ donation should her mother be declared brain dead. The warden granted a special visit. Yeon Hwa, heartbroken, confronted her stepfather, who revealed the suicide note. "She's so stupid. Why would she do this?" Yeon Hwa refused to believe her mother had taken her own life. Then she remembered Soo-ae was still missing. It was time to return to prison. She had to focus on earning parole. Soo-ae suddenly appeared, screaming for her sister. She'd found proof of Yeon Hwa's innocence, but Yu-ra had destroyed it. The CD had shown Yu-ra entering Yeon Hwa's room. Yeon Hwa begged the warden for more time. He reminded her to comply. Otherwise, her efforts would be wasted. Yeon Hwa returned to the prison to see Tae-jang, her son. For Soo-ae, for her mother, and for her son, she had to persevere. She asked Don-sung to take care of her mother and sister and to investigate the true cause of the incident that day. This kind woman decided to take Yeon Hwa's place as Kyung-suk's daughter and Soo-ae's sister. As for Chang-do, whenever he had time, he visited the hospital with Yeon Hwa's family. He also sent photos to Yeon Hwa, but she mistakenly believed Yoon-yi was behind these acts of kindness. Yu-ra, despite being married to Yoon-yi for over 2 years, hadn't conceived. To cultivate a benevolent Keeball wife image, she frequently participated in various charitable activities, and visiting prison inmates was part of her plan. "My son, mommy is so great, my son." Yu-ra discovered Yeon Hwa's secret. This was the revenge Yeon Hwa had spoken of. Children born in prison had to be released after 18 months, either to be adopted or sent to a hospital. Yeon Hwa needed to make a decision quickly. She took the necklace Yoon-yi had given her and put it on Tae-jang. It was all she could give him. On the day she had to part with her son, she sobbed, "What did I do wrong?" Yu-ra investigated the matter. She secretly followed the police car to the orphanage, pretending to want to adopt because she couldn't have children. The director showed her the files of all the children. Taking advantage of the director's absence, Yu-ra secretly switched the photos of 2 babies. She bribed a couple and successfully took Tae-jang out of the orphanage. Meanwhile, Don-sung and Soo-ae also came looking for Tae-jang. Both wanted to see him. Separated from her son, Yeon Hwa constantly missed him. Over the past 5 years, she diligently learned various skills, participated in social activities, earned recognition, and finally received a chance for parole. Yeon Hwa breathed in the fresh air outside. She swore she would never forgive those who had falsely accused her. Tae-jang, Yeon Hwa arrived at the orphanage with Don-sung. A single glance at the child revealed something was wrong. Yeon Hwa examined the boy. Tae-jang had a burn scar, but this child didn't. She was certain this wasn't her son. The director who had admitted Tae-jang to the orphanage had passed away, and the new director wasn't fully informed. Suspecting Yu-ra's involvement, Yeon Hwa confronted her. Driven by selfish desires, Yu-ra had only harmed herself. She wanted to send Yeon Hwa back to prison. Yeon Hwa, wrongly imprisoned for 5 years, was about to be falsely accused again. She couldn't believe Yu-ra would stoop so low. "Director, she's trying to kill me. She attacked me with a shard of glass." Yu-ra, a truly despicable and cunning woman, feigned weakness and fear when Yoon-yi appeared, rushing into his arms and claiming she wanted to forget the past, but Yeon Hwa wouldn't let her. Seizing the opportunity, Yeon Hwa told the assembled reporters about her past and present. She vowed to find the real culprit who killed Yoon-hee. The company's security guards asked Yoon-yi if they should hand Yeon Hwa over to the police. Yoon-yi told them to let her go. Yeon Hwa was thrown out, her strength finally giving way, and she collapsed. Her stepfather earnestly persuaded her to start over, offering her a large sum of money. He hoped she would take her mother and sister abroad. Yeon Hwa didn't refuse the money. In fact, she asked for more so she wouldn't have regrets. Upon arriving at Don-sung's house, she received the additional funds from her stepfather. He had transferred another billion won, a truly generous sum. Could this compensate for 5 years in prison? She went to Yoon-yi's office, telling him to talk to his in-laws and ask why they gave her so much money. Yoon-yi refused to listen and showed no interest in her affairs. J Cosmetics was holding a social innovation competition. The results were announced, and the winner was Yoon HWA, but she was nowhere to be seen. "I'm here." Backed into a corner, Yoon HWA resolved to fight for justice. The competition had no rule against pseudonyms. Chang-do, increasingly impressed by Yoon HWA, confirmed that the competition didn't require real names, ages, or occupations. He congratulated her, awarded her the prize, and offered her a job in the PR department. Yoon Hwa's plan was in motion. Using a different computer in the company, she uploaded the video of Chang-do accepting a bribe to the internet. Finally, Yoo-ra's accomplice was arrested. Yoo-ra's grandmother helped her get her mother out of the Choi household. They couldn't stay in that hellhole any longer. Chang-do called T-il for help. Thanks to Chang-do, T-il finally trusted Yoon Hwa, letting go of his long-held resentment. He also wanted to uncover the truth. T-il helped Yoon Hwa successfully rescue her mother and Kyung-suk. After leaving that hellhole, Yoon Hwa's mother regained consciousness and remembered the past. Yoon Hwa rushed to see her, overjoyed at her recovery. She was determined to make things right. For the past 5 years, the three of them had endured so much injustice. Yoon Hwa asked her mother, "Who did this to you? Was it Yoo-ra?" Her mother nodded, confirming Yoo-ra's guilt. "That wicked woman, my daughter has suffered so much," she blamed herself, saying she shouldn't have gone to that house in the first place. But Yoo-ra wouldn't leave them alone. She tricked the newly recovered Kyung-suk, forcibly restraining her and taking her away. Kyung-suk suddenly escaped from the car, running in terror towards the sea. Yoo-ra caught up with her. Kyung-suk pleaded, "Don't make any more mistakes, beg for forgiveness." Yoo-ra claimed she had no way out. A nurse informed Yoon Hwa and Soo-ae about Kyung-suk's situation. There was a call saying Kyung-suk's daughter came to pick her up. Yoon Hwa, having made no such call, immediately alerted the police. Yoo-ra blamed her stepmother, asking why Kyung-suk had come to her house. Why did everyone seem to prefer Yoon Hwa? She stepped closer to Kyung-suk, but lost her footing and fell. Kyung-suk grabbed Yoo-ra's hand with all her might. Finally terrified, Yoo-ra begged, "I'm wrong, I was wrong, I want to ask Yoon Hwa for forgiveness. If I die now, I won't have the chance," Kyung-suk urged. "Confess everything you've done and beg Yoon Hwa for forgiveness. Accept the punishment you deserve. You brought this upon yourself." The police reported to Yoon-yi, "She killed my sister and framed Yoon Hwa, and then she dared to marry and live with me for 6 years. How can you still be human? Do you have any humanity left, Yoo-ra?" It turned out to be Yoon-yi's imagination. He had just discovered Chang-do's true colors as he fled, attempting to dispose of evidence in a doghouse. Yoon-yi found it and brought it back. Inside was a necklace with Yoon-hee's blood, records of Yoo-ra and Judge Choi's bribery transactions, and Yoo-ra's fabricated recording. T-il asked Yoon-yi if he should give this evidence to Yoon Hwa. Yoon-yi felt it wasn't the right time, fearing for Yoon Hwa's safety. Judge Choi's career was on the rise, having advanced from a young lawyer to a member of the National Assembly. Yoon-yi received a call from T.U., informing him that Yoon Hwa had prepared all the evidence and set a date for a press conference. The only missing piece was proof of the police perjury. Now was the time to give it to her. Yoo-ra called Chang-do. "Act quickly. The incriminating evidence is in Yoon-yi's bag." Chang-do, with no other options, was forced to act. Yoon-yi and T.U. had left him no way out. He lunged for Yoon-yi's bag. Unfortunately, Yoon-yi had an accident during the chase, and the bag Chang-do snatched was empty. Yoo-ra frantically searched the hospital, but couldn't find the evidence. It turned out that before slipping into a coma, Yoon-yi had given it to Yoon Hwa. Reporters, now carrying Yoon Hwa's story, rallied to help clear her name. Kyung-suk, after several near-death experiences, had fully recovered. She couldn't believe Yoo-ra had committed such heinous acts for a man, and was now even willing to harm her own husband. She gave Yoo-ra a final warning. Tell her father to resign from the National Assembly, or she would ruin their family. Judge Choi, having forgotten his original political intentions, would have no way out. At that moment, a funeral wreath was delivered, nearly giving Choi's grandmother a heart attack. Yoo-ra, instead of blaming Yoon Hwa, advised her father to resign due to the gravity of the situation. He had spent years climbing to this position and refused to give it up. Yoo-ra put on an act for her husband when he returned home. Yoon-yi told her to drop the pretense and asked why she hadn't contacted him. Yoo-ra insisted she would never hurt him. Unbeknownst to her, Yoon-yi had been secretly recording her actions at home. The evidence was clear, but Yu-ra denied everything in the video. She admitted it was her image and voice, but claimed it was fake and that someone was framing her. Tired of the deception, Yoon-yi asked why she treated him this way. Yu-ra knelt and begged for forgiveness. But Yoon-yi wanted a divorce. He couldn't bear to look at her deceitful face any longer. Unwilling to give up, Yu-ra secretly followed Yoon Hwa. She discovered Yoon Hwa talking to a reporter, learning that the truth would be revealed after the election. Yu-ra urged her father to find a solution. The three of them were in this together, with no way out. Her mother declared that with enough money, any problem could be solved. Congressman Choi took action. He met with the broadcasting executive and a senior colleague, using both threats and promises, asking him if he wanted a promotion or to be fired. The executive had no choice but to refuse to air Yoon Hwa's story. Choi's mother gloated, claiming money and power could solve anything, and that no problem could threaten their position. Yoon-yi called Yoon Hwa. Soo-ae told him her sister had gone to her nephew's grave. Only then did he realize he had a son. Yu-ra had taken Tae-jang abroad and fabricated a story about his death. Yoon Hwa had built a grave for him. Yoon-yi knelt before Yoon Hwa's mother, confessing his failures. He blamed himself for not protecting Yoon Hwa, calling himself a terrible man. People told Yoon-yi that his wife was responsible. He immediately confronted Yu-ra, demanding, "What did you do to my son? Where did you take him?" "Honey, who told you that?" she feigned innocence. "You'll get what's coming to you. Get out of my sight. I don't want to see your face again." Yu-ra, the daughter of a high-ranking official, was thrown out by her husband. She was losing her mind, her hunger insatiable. Her grandmother and father were terrified. Yu-ra's mother had behaved similarly a year before her death. Yu-ra was on the verge of a complete breakdown. Yoon Hwa, having gathered all the evidence, was ready to expose Yu-ra and her accomplices, including her powerful congressman father and wealthy grandmother, who used their influence and money to block the broadcasts. If Yoon Hwa gave up now, she would never clear her name. She and her family took to the streets, seeking public support. Yoon Hwa stopped the broadcasting manager's car, begging for airtime, but he refused, calling the police to take her and her family away. Yu-ra received a call from Tae-jang's adoptive mother. Thanking her for her help with her trip back home for her own mother's funeral, she requested assistance with expedited departure procedures back to England. Yoon-yi, no longer trusting Yu-ra, wanted to confirm his son's whereabouts himself. He demanded to know what she had done with Tae-jang and why she would do such a thing to his son. Yu-ra maintained her innocence, claiming she only had good intentions, not wanting Yoon-yi's son to grow up in an orphanage. At that moment, the orphanage director found information about the child who had been mistakenly identified years ago, a boy named Dong-hak. It turned out Dong-hak was Tae-jang's new name. Yoon-yi asked if Tae-jang was living under the name Dong-hak. The director confirmed it was a possibility. He pressed Yu-ra, asking where the child was now, having seen him at her mother's house. Yu-ra vehemently denied everything, insisting she would never do such a thing. Yoon-yi gave her a final warning. If she continued to lie, the consequences would be more severe than just divorce. Yoon Hwa's video plea for justice went viral, gaining public support and prompting calls for official broadcasts on the matter. People across the country rallied behind her. Yu-ra told Tae-jang's adoptive mother that they were leaving the country today and that everything was prepared. Then, she received bad news from Changdu. Her fake passports were invalid, and attempting to use them would lead to immediate arrest. Desperate to prevent Yoon-yi from finding Tae-jang, Yu-ra instructed Changdu to go to the airport and intercept them while she distracted Yoon-yi. Hopefully, Yoon-yi wouldn't fall for her tricks again. Airport staff informed Yoon-yi that a passenger named Dong-hak had boarded a 12:30 flight. However, Yoon-yi was too late. Changdu had already taken Tae-jang. He then informed Yoon Hwa that their son was still alive. Yoon Hwa confronted Yu-ra's grandmother, asking why she had lied about Tae-jang's death. The grandmother explained that she had done it to protect Yoon Hwa from further pain, and that there were times she wanted to tell her the truth. Yoon Hwa refused to listen. Yu-ra, with her life spiraling out of control, having repeatedly hurt her stepmother and with no way back, kidnapped Tae-jang. News broke on TV. A live broadcast exposing a high-ranking official aiding his daughter in criminal activity was scheduled. Yu-ra panicked, wondering what would happen to her father. She called Yoon Hwa to negotiate. She would return Tae-jang in exchange for canceling the broadcast. Yoon Hwa readily agreed. Yu-ra demanded that Yoon Hwa come alone to the meeting point with all the evidence. Congressman Choi then received news that the court had received a request to reopen the 5-year-old case. Even if the broadcast was cancelled, they were still in danger. Had Yoon Hwa set a trap? Yoon Hwa handed over the evidence to Yu-ra, hoping she would return her son. As Yu-ra was about to reveal Tae-jang's location, Chang-do called, warning her that they had been tricked and not to give up the child. Yu-ra reneged on the deal and took Tae-jang elsewhere. The boy, wanting to cook instant noodles, started a fire in a pit. But the fire quickly spread out of control. The child was Tae-jang, Yoon Hwa's son. Yu-ra, seeking revenge, had kidnapped him to inflict pain on Yoon Hwa and Yoon-yi. Her grandmother urged her to return, assuring her that Yoon Hwa and Yoon-yi weren't heartless and would forgive her. But Yu-ra felt she had gone too far and there was no turning back. The police informed them that they had located Yu-ra. Chang-do, on his way out of the country, heard the news and asked his boss if she had ever met the woman in the picture. She told him they were nearby. When Chang-do reached the location, Tae-jang was trapped in the inferno. He doused himself with water and rushed in. He grabbed Tae-jang, but slipped as they tried to escape. Fortunately, Yoon-yi arrived just in time. He quickly took Tae-jang from Chang-do's arms and carried him to safety. But Tae-jang cried out that Chang-do was still inside. As Chang-do tried to escape, a beam fell across his back, knocking him unconscious. Yoon-yi rushed back into the flames and rescued him. Chang-do's mother was waiting for him to leave the country together. She had everything arranged and wanted no further arguments with Yu-ra. Yoon Hwa now knew that Chang-do had been the one writing her encouraging letters for the past 5 years. She repeatedly called his name, saying he was a good person and would pull through. Struggling to speak, Chang-do asked Yoon-yi to take care of Yoon Hwa and Tae-jang and to forgive his mother. With his final words, Chang-do passed away. His mother was devastated by the news of his death. Yu-ra had indirectly caused another death, yet this demon showed no remorse. With her crimes exposed and the wrongly accused vindicated, Yu-ra had nowhere to turn but to Chang-do. He told her to handle her own problems, as he was fleeing the country that night and wanted nothing more to do with her. Yu-ra begged for one last favor, a car. Remembering the large sum of money he had stolen from her house, Chang-do agreed to help her one last time. But Yoon Hwa had anticipated this. She found Yu-ra and brought her to justice. The wrongful conviction case was reopened. Among the accomplices were a member of the National Assembly, a lawyer, and police officers. All because of this woman's reckless actions, using power and money to shift blame. Congressman Choi, an upright judge for over 25 years, had descended into a life of crime to protect his daughter. Chang-do had blackmailed Yu-ra for personal gain. The lawyer's perjury was exposed, and the plot against Kyung-suk was revealed. Yu-ra refused to answer questions, insisting it was all an accident. Kyung-suk's mother screamed, "Kneel before my daughter, beg Yoon Hwa for forgiveness, murderer, you should die." Yu-ra remained silent, not out of pride, but defeat. Her grandmother knelt, weeping and taking full responsibility, admitting her fault to her granddaughter. Was her love right or wrong? Finally, the judge asked the defendant if she had anything to say. Yu-ra offered no defense or admission of guilt. Yoon Hwa, anxious about another potential setback, saw Chang-do, her source of hope, appear in her mind, giving her strength. The truth was revealed. The judge declared Yoon Hwa's case null and void, changing her manslaughter conviction to not guilty. Everyone rejoiced for Yoon Hwa. Justice, though delayed, had prevailed. "Thank you, everyone," she said. Choi was sentenced to 7 years, Chang-do posthumously to 8, and Yu-ra to life imprisonment on multiple charges. Upon hearing the verdict, Yu-ra's grandmother collapsed. Yu-ra broke down, claiming innocence and blaming Yoon Hwa for everything. But the law was not to be trifled with. Tae-il, don't cry anymore. Yoon-hee appeared in Tae-il's dream. The woman he loved was still beautiful and gentle. She urged him to let go of his guilt and find happiness. "Yoon-hee," he whispered. A vision of pure beauty appeared before him. Soo-ae, who had prepared a delicious meal. Seeing his tears, she gently blew them away. Tae-il closed his eyes, savoring the moment, silently thanking Yoon-hee for bringing Soo-ae into his life. Yoon Hwa established her own cosmetics company, achieving the second highest sales and becoming a truly empowered woman. At Soo-ae and Tae-il's wedding, the nervous bride froze, unable to walk down the aisle. Tae-il simply picked her up and carried her towards their happy future. Yoon Yi told Yoon Hwa he would always wait for her, whether it took 5 or 10 years, wherever she might be. Yoon Hwa, her life back on track, volunteered at the prison, hoping to offer hope to others. She inquired about Yu Ra's condition. The guard told her Yu Ra had attempted suicide multiple times and had lost her will to live. She was brutally beaten daily by fellow inmates for her past crimes. Yoon Hwa confided in a nun, expressing her happiness but also her discomfort at Yu Ra's suffering, asking if she could help Yu Ra find a reason to live. As a child, Yu Ra's insistence on retrieving a lost shoe from the sea had indirectly led to her mother's death, leaving her deeply traumatized. Her grandmother, having donated all her assets, now desired only peace and happiness. Taejang and Yu Ra had formed a bond during the past 5 years, and Yu Ra hadn't harmed him. "Yu Ra, what do you remember?" Letting go of her hatred, Yoon Hwa wrote to Yu Ra, telling her that Taejang missed her and urging her to reform. She described a place in the prison where she had found solace. "Yoon Hwa, I'm sorry," Yu Ra finally whispered.